Okay, I'll go ahead and call this April meeting of the Retirement and Pension Board to order. I will begin by reading the determination of electronic meeting. A determination is needed by the board regarding electronic meetings pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order number 16, executed on March the 20th of 2020, extended by the Governor's Executive Order numbers 34, 51, 60, 65, 71, 73, and 78, effective through 11:59 p.m. Central Time on April the 28th, 2021, and pursuant to recommendations from the Tennessee Comptroller of the Treasury issued on March the 20th of 2020, and other applicable laws in effect. The governor's orders allow government agencies to amend or rescind portions of the Tennessee Open Meetings Act regarding electronic meetings in lieu of in-person attendance and participation. The Comptroller's Office recommends that boards make a determination regarding the necessity of electronic meetings for continued function of government agencies and to protect public health, safety, and welfare during the outbreak of COVID-19. Such determination is to be placed on the record in the board's minutes. May I have a motion for this determination and to record this determination in the board's minutes?
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Jennifer, call the roll.
Mr. Caldwell,
Aye.
Commissioner Jay,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Bustler,
Aye.
Mr. Simons,
Aye.
Ms. Samar,
Aye.
Mr. Snowden,
Aye.
and that's a unanimous vote. That motion carries.
Item number 3, amendments to the agenda. You were sent an amended agenda this afternoon that included an application for disability. Other than that, are there any other amendments to the agenda?
I have no other amendments.
Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4, approval of minutes of March the 29th of 2021. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second. Motion made and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Jennifer, call the roll.
Mr. Caldwell,
Aye.
Commissioner Jay,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Bustler,
Aye.
Mr. Simons,
Aye.
Ms. Samar,
Aye.
Mr. Snowden.
Aye.
That's a unanimous vote. That motion carries.
Item number 5, applications for disability benefit. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Jennifer, call the roll.
Mr. Caldwell,
Aye.
Commissioner Jay,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Bustler,
Aye.
Commissioner Ward, Mr. Simons,
Aye.
Mr. Mullinax,
Aye.
Ms. Samar,
Aye.
and Mr. Snowden.
Aye.
And I'm trying to share my screen. I'm just, there it should come. Okay.
Moving on to item number 6, applications for retirement defined contribution plan. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Jennifer, call the roll.
Mr. Caldwell,
Aye.
Commissioner Jay,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Bustler,
Aye.
Commissioner Ward, Mr. Simons,
Aye.
Mr. Mullinax,
Aye.
Ms. Samar,
Aye.
Mr. Snowden.
Aye.
And that's a unanimous vote. That motion carries.
Jennifer, Kyle Ward's in the waiting room. If you guys can admit him, please.
That's got to be IT. Is Jacob or Rob on?
Hey, this is Rob. I let Kyle in a minute ago.
Okay, thank you.
I'm in. I couldn't hear anything. I'm here now. Sorry, guys. Train.
No worries. Item number 7, application to retirement uniformed officers pension plan. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll take the second. Gabe can have the first.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, Jennifer, call the roll.
Mr. Codwell?
Aye.
Commissioner Jay?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Bussler?
Aye.
Commissioner Ward?
Aye.
Mr. Simons?
Aye.
Mr. Mullinax?
Aye.
Ms. Samar?
Aye.
Mr. Snowden?
Aye.
That's a unanimous vote and that motion carries.
Moving on to item number 8, report of executive director, Jennifer.
Okay, sorry, since we had an amended agenda, I have to switch between documents. So the first thing, let's see, let me pull this up for you real quick. So the first thing I wanted to present under my report was the approved budget. We had approved the budget without the extra enhancement for Ben Excel. I had discussed other options, which I'll go later on into my report, but this was the budget that was approved. So I just wanted to put the approved copy in the record. The second item that I have is our plan summaries. These have been all updated as of March 31st, 2020. So that gives you each a snapshot of what each plan looks like and what their balances are in each plan. The next thing in my report is the blackout notice. I just wanted to convey that this blackout notice was mailed to all participants by USI, and we also did a mass email to the active participants at Knox County. Remember, with this blackout notice, it was changes to the balanced portfolio fund, and those changes will take place in May. The actual blackout will be Friday, May 21st through Friday, May 28th, and it's just that fund. So the next item that I have is to discuss the proposal for Bluefin. I told you that I was looking at another option to Ben Excel, and I've talked with our IT department. I've talked with Zach. I've talked with members of his staff, and he is encouraging me as well to get to a web-based program. USI did a demonstration with a Bluefin administrative system. Basically, this would be an enhancement to what we have through Ben Excel. With this system, I can get estimates for DC and DB participants. Right now, Ben Excel gives us the estimates for the DB participants, and the actuary approves those calculations. With this Bluefin system, we would be able to run the DB estimates and probably mimic an actuarial review for a few months, and to see if they are true and do line up. And then we may possibly, that will be up for discussion, but could possibly go away from the actuary review, which each review is about $500 for an review for retirement on the DB or UOP plan. Right now in the DC plan, we're using an Excel spreadsheet to do the estimations provided by USI. With this Bluefin system, it will be able to run the estimates from the system. So I'm real excited about that opportunity. It will add new hires manually, or I'm sorry, it will add the new hires directly into Bluefin. At this point, we are actually manually entering in new hires from the Munis payroll system into BenXL. It calculates the COLAs. For the valuation purposes, USI would have direct access. With our DB, we have State Street, who is our custodian. Any new payments, changes, stop payments would have an uploaded file directly to State Street. We have extract reports to run to USI for address files, termination files, and all of these reports would be easily uploaded to USI into the retirement accounts. So currently we have a server on BenXL through the IT department. I just authorized a 1-year warranty for that server. If we go to a web-based program, IT will no longer hold a server for us, and there would be no maintenance from the IT department. So basically, I know you're going to ask me what the costs are. So I had reported earlier that BenXL to go to a web-based version was going to cost $150,000. And this proposal with Bluefin, and I'll actually go to the pages with the services and fees, it would be a $90,000 implementation fee. It would have an annual fee of roughly $75,000. Our annual fee right now with BenXL is $59,000 with a 2% increase each year. Now programming, we do put in the budget $50,000 for programming in BenXL. I did a 3-year calculation to see what those programming costs, and we're averaging about $21,000 per year in programming fees with BenXL. If you look at the bottom of this proposal for Bluefin, it has optional services. And basically that would be charges for any major additions or programming or extensive changes to the system. And so we would probably program, or budget in a dollar amount in case those fees were incurred. But if we don't have any changes to our plans or any programming changes, there won't be any additional cost. So basically with this proposal, I wanted to give you an opportunity to look at it. I've talked it over with Chris. I've talked it over with IT. I actually had one of the IT folks review the proposal. She has sent me back some questions, and I would work hand in hand with them, with the IT department and also with our legal to finalize a contract. But what I'm asking the board for today is approval to go ahead with this implementation, work through the what the setup would be, look at what the system that I have. Right now, we've just had a rough discussion, and I would like the board to approve that we could go to possibly implementing Bluefin as our administrative process for the retirement office to replace BenXL. Is there any questions? We also have with us Mark, who is actually the person with Bluefin that ran the demonstration for us. He's available for questions as well.
Any questions as it relates? I guess we'll take the Bluefin proposal by itself. So any questions or a motion on the Bluefin proposal?
I think Randy has a question.
Randy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Jennifer, having never used this this program administration software, did I hear you correctly? And there are still some details to be ironed out with IT?
IT has reviewed the proposal. They don't have anything major. They just have questions like the service contract, just questions that would help walk me through the transition from BenXL to Bluefin.
Okay, so it's the transition. There's no question of its capability to work with our system.
No, it's web-based. So actually IT really, after I would sign off on the contract, they would really not have much hand in it, other than possibly the conversion. Bluefin has worked with BenXL customers in the past to convert over to Bluefin. So I'm assuming that that transition would go smoothly, but after the transition, I don't expect that IT would be involved.
And after the initial setup cost, with what we have currently with the add-ons that we're adding every year, the price difference, if there is no extra services added to the Bluefin, is, what's the difference?
So let me say this. So in the annual fee that we have, that they're proposing, the 75, they would look at that each year. And if there's a plus or minus of 15% of our population, there could be an increase or possibly a decrease if we would not have as many employees. But does that answer your question, or did?
Well, what is the cost of the current contract? And I think you said it was like 51,000. Then we had about 20,000.
Right. Our annual fees are budgeted for 59,000 for this next year, and we budget $50,000 in programming fees. So right now in the budget, I have $109,000 budgeted.
Okay, and as the person who will be using this, you prefer the system?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion or any other questions?
Yeah, Jennifer, this is Jim Snow. Could you, you said that BenXL had an online version as well. Would you care to elaborate a little bit in regard to the benefits of Bluefin versus that? You mentioned a little bit, but I just wanted to hear it again and see if just kind of a little more, I guess, elaboration on that.
Right. So right now, like I said, we retain a server for BenXL. So remotely, for example, it's more difficult to get into the system. IT has been working with me for probably 8 or 9 months to improve that process. Most other programs are web-based. So to do the transition from BenXL to a web-based program, it's going to cost $150,000. So IT was okay with doing that because they thought that was a better process. But then Bob approached me with this Bluefin offer or proposal, and I looked at that, and if BenXL is very dated, we're probably one of their older clients. So, and it's very tailored to us. We're not an easy, an easy transition because we have so many plans. We have 3 DB plans and the 4 defined contribution plans. But what this allows us to do, I think, is one is implementing the new hires directly from a payroll load up into Bluefin, where we don't have to hand key names, addresses, birth dates. When we have retirements, after the estimates run, we can actually run all the retirement paperwork. Right now, we have to actually manually key in each form the person's name, address, phone number. So the enhancements to Bluefin are a lot around those realms that would save us time. Also, with State Street, who is the UOP teachers and defined benefit plans, we actually put their payment information into BenXL, and then we key that also into My State Street. We have to set up a brand new payee with name, address, the amounts. So it's actually going to eliminate a lot of duplication of work that we currently do. And the big thing is too, that they will actually do the COLA calculations every year. Right now, Savannah spends about 2 or 3 months working on our COLA process for us. And with this system, it would actually do the calculations. We would get a report before they're actually finalized to review. So that would take time out of the COLA review as well.
Thank you.
Those are the highlights.
That's very helpful. I appreciate you taking time there, but that answers my questions. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Jennifer, call the roll.
Mr. Codwell,
Aye.
Commissioner Jay,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Bustler,
Aye.
Commissioner Ward,
Aye.
Mr. Simons,
Aye.
Mr. Mullinax.
Aye.
Ms. Samar,
Aye.
Mr. Snowden.
Aye.
And that's a unanimous vote and that motion passes. So 2 more things on my report. One is the office staff. As you know, we've been working remotely. I've been in the office maybe 2 to 3 days a week. And we actually have somebody come in the office every day to check the mail. As numbers are lowering, I wanted to give my staff the opportunity to get vaccinated as we, do see the retirees when our office is opened. So I am going to have our staff come back to work in office, projecting for mid-May, by the end of May at the latest. And also we're working with our IT department to transition all the staff to Surface Pros, so that if numbers do happen to go back up, or if there's any changes in our working environment, it will be easy enough that they can return to a remote, working remote at home. And the last thing that I wanted to discuss with the board is we have our investment committee meeting on May the 11th. And right now we don't have, haven't decided where that meeting's going to take place. Information I've gotten a little bit from John and legal is that the governor may not extend the electronic meeting notices. We won't know that here probably until the end of this week. John, have you heard anything different?
We haven't heard, it's just rumor at this point. So we're not sure. And so we're spreading rumor, I guess, but
right.
Chances are that he's just going to let it lapse. And so he will not renew it, which means that we would, of course, be meeting in person next month.
Right.
Jennifer, as chairman of that committee, I would prefer to meet in person.
Yes. And so my question to you is, are you comfortable with room 640? We have that reserved for our meetings, or would you want to meet in the main assembly room where it's a larger room?
Is the small assembly room not available? Well, there's no TV. Right.
Our issues is the recording in that room.
Is the main assembly room available?
I don't know. I'd have to check.
Well, that would be my first preference, and then 640.
Okay. And then going forward for our meetings, do you want to meet in the main assembly, or do you want to meet in room 640? Chairman, do you have a preference?
Well, you're asking me to predict the future. If I could do that, I wouldn't have to be serving on the investment committee.
If we could get
staying in the main assembly until we get the all clear sign.
Yeah, if we could get main assembly, I think that's best.
Okay.
If it's available.
And so I'm going to spread a little bit more rumor that I've heard is that there might be a possibility of a hybrid option as well. And if that option is there, then I could ask, IT where we could technically meet in 640 with a handful of people, and then also run a Zoom meeting as well for other people's. And I guess we could coordinate that as well. But if I can't get the main assembly and that hybrid option is available, we might be able to try to do something as that as well. But I will check on the main assembly and get back to you guys this week.
Thank you.
Jennifer, do we need to vote on the budget?
No, it was finalized. Well,
Okay.
So we took out the $150,000 that I had budgeted for.
I think we approved it though with that taken out.
Right, but now we just added the 90,000, or do you want to wait to finalize that until I get further in negotiations with Bluefin?
We could,
to amend the budget?
and it's just an amendment at that point.
Right,
That's fine.
okay.
Item number 9, report of investment committee, Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jennifer, first I want to ask you, I know we sent out through snail mail and email the dead period for the balanced fund at reallocation, but that's been a while. Will there be a follow-up closer to the actual shutdown?
We can. The reason why we send it out far in advance is, and I might let Ashley or Bill explain this, even though we're not ERISA, I think there has to be so many days notice for those blackout periods, and we typically follow that same process.
I understand that completely, but people tend to forget, and I don't want people having a lot of, oh,
But if you want to, then like that week of the blackout, that Monday before the 24th, I can send out another notice.
I think that would be best.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, as to the investments, if you'll go to page 37 of the emailed packet, you'll find the defined contribution plan spreadsheet. And also, if you go to page 47 of that package, you'll find the defined benefit spreadsheet. As you can see, the market continues to soldier on in a very strong manner. All's good. Do you have anything you would like to add, Mr. Cross?
No, no, I think to your point, things continue to do extremely well. We were fortunate the committee approved a rotation into more of a value orientation for the various asset categories. So we've been rewarded for that. The committee, some of the funds last year, 60, 70% rate of return. So had an exceptional year. And I think at this point, we're reasonably optimistic, I'll say, for the foreseeable future. So.
Okay, are there any questions? Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Item number 10, report of legal counsel. We'll start with Mr. Owens.
Mr. Chair, I have nothing further to report this month.
Thank you, sir. Going on to Mr. Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have nothing to report this month.
Thank you. Any questions for legal counsel? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 11, report of actuary Bob Cross. Bob, it's all yours.
Well, thank you. So we wanted to give you an update on the valuations. Jennifer or Brenda, are you able to pull up that exhibit? We went through this last, but again, just perfect. Thank you. Brenda, are you going to move the pages, or is Jennifer? Or neither?
Oh, Brenda
I
is.
was on mute. Sorry. I was raising my hand to say me. Sorry.
No, that's all right. No problem. You do a great job, Brenda. You're good. So let's go to the next page and we'll briefly run through this. So again, we wanted to give you an update on the valuations. As you can see, all of the plans are in outstandingly good shape. The GASB funding ratios are in excess of those required under state regulations, and we look at the others and they are in outstanding shape. The funding percent of an accrued liability for UOP is at 85%. So that's, again, outstanding. I might mention with respect to UOP, we expect on a long-term basis to realize a rate of return of approximately 7.5%. The actuarial assumption is 7.25%. The state of Tennessee's assumption is 7.25%. So we're well in line with the state of Tennessee and assumptions utilized there. And we are, in fact, using an assumed rate of return, which is less than that we expect to achieve over the next 20 years. The average rate of return assumed on uniformed officer plans in the United States, according to the Society of Actuaries, is almost 7.5%. So again, we feel we've been very conservative in terms of the assumption utilized on rate of return is very much consistent with the assumption used from the state of Tennessee. And again, below that, what we expect to achieve through the investment strategy that's been employed. And we have a lower rate of return than that assumed by, on an average basis, so some are higher, of other uniformed officer plans in the United States. The county's contribution, as you can see, increased slightly with respect to the closed county plan. For UOP, it did decline somewhat. Board of Education, there is an agreement in place that the Board of Education will contribute at 1.2 million. You can see just another note, I guess, with respect to the GASB expense, just to confirm the Board of Education, you see that number of parentheses. So that means rather than an expense, there is a gain or an asset with respect to the Board of Education plan. So that's great news. UOP, the current year GASB expense declined from 17 million last year to 12 million this year, another significant gain. And then finally, on the closed county plan, it's 1.9 versus 3.9 last year. So I'm sure Chris is thrilled that the GASB expense numbers declined all the way across the board with all of the plans. Brent, if we could.
Chris, I got a quick question. Mr. Chairman, do those, since those numbers are so dramatically different, is that going to be reflected in the upcoming budget for contributions?
Which numbers are you talking about, Larson?
Well, I'm just saying that the contribution levels and how good thing, are we going to stick with the plan and still kind of pay what we had scheduled and then just make gains, or are we going to adjust accordingly?
We have worked with Bob and I have included the current year contribution in the budget for FY22.
Okay, so we're kind of staying the course and just getting ahead of it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Great question. Brenda, if we could go, so again, just briefly to run through these, the market value of assets as a percentage of the present value of accrued benefits, we can see we have all three of the plans here together. UOP is consistently at 90% or better. The teacher's plan, after about 10 years, will be funded, totally funded. The county plan at a couple of years later. And you can see the state funding requirements are in the dotted line or the dashed line. So well in excess of any state requirements. And on a projected basis, the plans again will be in stellar shape. Brenda, and these are the actuarially determined contributions. We can see for UOP that they are fairly consistent from year to year. Dramatic drop off in the teacher's plan and in the closed county plan as well. So those go to practically zero within the next decade. And the net pension liability, very important if the county were to wish to issue bonds going forward. Those are critically important. For liability purposes, we can see a steady decline, not an increase in any set of circumstances. So we see continued improvement on a net pension liability basis as well. And finally, GASB expense, we can see again a steady decline. With respect to UOP, there's a bump that occurs. That's just a function of the amortization process. Before we get to that point, we will work to smooth that out so that, again, we don't have an artificial increase, but rather, again, a smooth process that we can reflect as far as GASB expense. We don't like spikes, and I know the county and the finance department, the board commissioners do not like those kind of unique events, I'll say. So we want to make sure we have a smooth transition. On the closed county retirement plan, we can see the projected contributions. So very consistent over the next few years that we could go to the next. And so we always are just how I'm built. What happens if we had an unusual event? And I must add that we have a 95% confidence, that's 2 standard deviations, that the most dramatic drop in assets given the current asset structure is at 16%. We have a 60% confidence that we will achieve a rate of return in excess of 7.5%, close to 7 3/4, and it varies from plan to plan over the next 20 years. So we look at the max drawdown that we expect, and that's very confident in that, no more than 16% in the worst of circumstances. And we have a high probability of achieving the rate of return that's been assumed. So let's say that we have 0 return for 5 years. These are numbers that would not be pleasant, but we think certainly numbers that the county could absorb if there were, again, just an unusual set of circumstances. If we go to the next exhibit, let's say we lose 20%, again, that would be far beyond 2 standard deviations, actually. It's in the almost impossible set of circumstances given the current portfolio, famous last words. But again, these are numbers which could be managed by the county, even in the worst of circumstances. It wouldn't be pleasant. If we go to one more, Brenda, and I'll go through these quickly. The conversations have arisen in the past. Let's suppose the funded ratio here is 65, 70%. What if we would contribute more money? Would that be helpful? You would note that the total contribution at the bottom is about 34 million. If you were to go back to the initial page, it's around 30 million. So really, we don't get any gain at all by contributing an additional sum of money into the plan because we only have a relatively short lifespan for this plan. So contributing an additional 5 million, and Brenda, if we could go one more page, contributing 7.5 really does not help us at all either. So this plan, we're better off to utilize an investment strategy which minimizes the probability of a downside occurrence, which would be very painful, and at the same time, utilize those assets for better purposes within as the county sets its priorities. So we move to the Board of Education. So 7%, we can see again, we have pension expense, which is negative, which means there's an asset gain. We can see that after 8-9 years, we're out of the plan, and gas expense is next to nothing. So very, very helpful, positive on the accounting side. This plan basically is wound down at this point in time. So that's great news. You can see the total accounting expense over the next 20 years is only 154,000. So it's, again, just outstanding. If we go to the same set of examples, if we had a 0% for 5 years, without belaboring this, these are numbers which would be unpleasant, painful, but certainly something the county could be able to absorb. But again, I would reference that we have confidence based on just strictly math, given the asset categories in place, that we could achieve the rate of return, and that's high probability. And the probability of a dramatic loss, and that would be 16% or more, we have high confidence, 95% plus, that that's unlikely to occur. So then finally, if we go to UOP, and this will lead us to a request for a change in the funding policy statement. So these are the expected contribution requirements for UOP. And again, 7 1/4 actually, if we do the projections that's using in the Horizon study, that rate of return actually is a little over 7.5%. So we can see the actuarially determined contributions are very static up and down, but basically static for the next 30 years. And similarly, we see, fortunately, a really dramatic drop in the 10 to 7.8 up to 12. Again, we'll smooth that out. But we can see that relatively static numbers with a dramatic decline on the GASB expense, and the funded ratio continues to improve. So great, UOP is in great shape actuarially and financially. If we go to the next page, so the challenge we would have if we had an untoward, and this would be, again, extraordinarily low probability. What if it were to occur? So we're seeing very dramatic increases in costs, and these are serious numbers to me. I mean, we're looking at 7 million in 21, and then we're up at 30 to 18 million. Again, cannot overemphasize, extraordinarily unlikely. On the accounting side, same thing, we see dramatic changes. Let's go to the very last page, Exhibit 4, Brenda. So what we are recommending is to mitigate unbelievably unusual, atypical, unexpected series of events, that we use an amortization period which would facilitate the management of those events, should they, unlikely, but should they occur. And you can see that there's not a dramatic change in the contribution pattern, but we feel would have a dramatic impact on smoothing out unusual, untoward events. So we are recommending that the funding policy be modified slightly, and the only modification would be, it is in accordance with state funding policy requirements that we amortize any gains and losses over 30 years, as opposed to the variable rates which were in place previously. So I'll be glad to answer any questions about the actual evaluation and projections we've made. I know you probably get tired of hearing me say this, but all of the plans are in great shape actuarially. We have these in place to manage the liabilities and the assets, and to manage downside risk. Any questions?
Yes. Bob?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I've always questioned the 30-year amortization of losses and gains. And I guess I'm wondering if that time frame is too long, considering the length of employment and the exposure of these funds.
Randy, frankly, we wrestle with that. What should be an appropriate period of time, and really the lifespan of I always go back to lifespans. So the county's plan is about 10 years, the Board of Education plan's 10, and the lifespan of the UOP is 30 years. So we thought to amortize it over the practical lifetime of the plan. If the board wanted to use a shorter amortization period, obviously that's great to discuss. The recommendation was to help manage any untoward events, which are very unlikely to occur. I would concede that, very unlikely to occur. I don't know if that helped you or not, but we're comfortable with the 30 years, but certainly always glad to discuss that.
Okay, I mean, are we comfortable with it because we don't like the spikes and the dips, and it just looks better on paper, but in reality, is there a scenario where using that 30-year amortization could get one caught short?
I think it gets short potentially. There could be an increase in contributions down the road, since you're amortizing those, as you know, over a longer period of time. It's like a house mortgage. There's no doubt about it. So I think the trade-off for the discussion, it would be, do we want to use a shorter amortization period and perhaps have a dramatic increase in a really, really odd set of circumstances? and have to deal with that at that point in time, which could be challenging in a lot of ways, or anticipate what might happen. So again, Randy, I think, that would, the current year contribution would increase by, I think, 300, 350. So, I mean, again, that's a great discussion, great question. We're comfortable with it. Glad to discuss.
Okay, well, you're the expert, and I'm just the guy that asks questions. So if you're comfortable with it, I feel better.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Well, I won't be
Hey,
around.
Bob, can I jump in on that topic real quick?
Sure. I won't be around here in 30 years, Randy.
That's why you picked 30
That's
years.
what
'cause you
scares
won't-
me.
Now, my question is Bob, is that a scenario in which you could do sort of a quick cursory scenario for us of, what does 10 years look like? What is 15, 20, 30? It's an exercise maybe you guys could do.
Absolutely.
Broad strokes and bring back to the board as if we were going to change that, here might be the impact of that.
That would be great and easy to do.
Thank
Great
you.
idea.
Bob, you don't have to stick around 30 years. You don't have to stick around 30, but if you could do 3 years, 9 months, 19 days, and 8 hours, I would greatly appreciate
it. I appreciate everything you guys do, by the way. I appreciate you.
Do we want to take a vote on the recommendation of the funding policy change now? Because we could always revisit it when he brings those other scenarios as well.
Would it contradict Commissioner Jay's request to look at these other scenarios before we vote?
I wouldn't mind a wait. I mean, if it's not going to change how we do business in the next little period, I wouldn't mind to kind of look at all of it and then set one policy that we can then, go forth with. But if it changes how we operate between now and then, I would, go ahead and approve. And if we need to amend, so you all tell me if that makes a big impact over a month.
What do you think, Bob?
Well, again, there is a difference, as you know, Chris, on the budget, 300,000. So I think it's up to, I think that's the consideration, I guess, if you were to change it in some degree, it may not be that entire amount. So I think that would be the question.
I don't think it hurts to wait till May, Bob, if you could bring that back in May.
Okay.
So we'll hold off and bring back the policy review in May. Anything else for Bob? Seeing none, item number 12, approval for repayment statement of account. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll second it then.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Jennifer, call the roll.
Mr. Caldwell,
Aye.
Commissioner Jay,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Bustler,
Could I abstain from this? I had some interruptions while you all were talking about this and I didn't get all of it down, so I want to pass on that.
Commissioner Ward,
Aye.
Mr. Simons,
Aye.
Mr. Molnax,
Aye.
Ms. Samar,
Aye.
Mr. Snowden.
Aye.
And that's a majority vote. That motion passes.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you all.
You,
Thank you.